Welcome back to Wednesday night, everyone. How are you all doing? Welcome back, welcome back. Okay, we're jumping right into it. What I've decided to do, actually, I've been messing around with the camera, doing a little bit of f-stop stuff. Say that one fast. In order to try to hopefully get like this area in focus as well as what we're actually working on. This is about the best I can do with how close you guys are. So even out here, it's still kind of not focused, but I've got as much as I can, as good as I can, I guess. The problem is I try to stretch out the amount that it's in focus. Basically the image gets darker and darker. So it gets to a point where there's a balance, and this is, I think, what's gonna work. So anyway, a little bit of technical stuff to let you know. The other little technical deal, not really technical, but just the plan is this is coming together now. Normally I'd probably start about here and run across this way, leaving this up here. But I like the river. I'm gonna go kind of do this whole area as I move across. And that'll get us going. I will have to kind of, adjust as I go, but I thought that'd be good. So yeah, let's start with that building up the top, and we'll just kind of move down from there, I think. Yeah, I guess that's it. So what's going on? How's your Wednesday? Welcome, everyone. I am super happy that Monday Night Live is now moved over to Monday, or YouTube. It's Monday. I'm really glad it's over here now. I was really worried that I had a bigger Facebook following, and then if I switched to YouTube, I'd lose all the traction. But it's the Facebookers were amazing coming on over, so I am deeply happy about that, because everything works better over here. Not only the organization of the videos, but now with Facebook saying they're going to delete all the lives after 30 days, just a bad look all around. So I'm super happy. I'll still do stuff with Facebook, but yeah, glad it's working out. What else? Trying to think of housekeeping stuff that I wanted to kind of go over. Yeah, that's about it. I do have a bunch of extra videos that I'm kind of thinking about, kind of working on. I want to do a Tech Tuesday on the Infinity CR that I got from Spray Gunner. That's turned out to be quite a brush, so it's definitely going to be in the rotation now. It's a lot different than the feel of the Iwatas, but performance-wise, it does a great job. So that has earned it a spot in the lineup, which is nice. So I'll do a little review and how I feel about it, and that's really all it is. As far as technical stuff, there's so many great videos on that brush and how it's changed, and this is my first Infinity, so I can't really comment on how much better it is than the old ones because I don't have one, the old ones, but I'll give you my impression on coming from a Japanese airbrush user type of idea. Like I said, it is different. It has a different feel. The Germans do things a little bit differently in the way they manufacture things, and also the way that they, their not only aesthetics, but also their just the way they feel like this brush should work. The people they had talked to, and like I said, it lives up to the bill, but it is a different animal, which is kind of cool. So yeah, that's what I got coming. That's coming, and then I still have, for those who had been through my channel or caught them originally when I did them, the Model Monday, which is what I did for a little while. More as a hobby. Sorry, I'm drinking coffee. More as a hobby type of thing that I love doing, but I don't get a lot of time. So I figured, what better way to stay on task than to try to put a video out every once in a while, and that'll keep me motivated. Well, that worked for the first few episodes, and then I haven't worked on it in a year. Ow. I have a brand new coffee cup, and I'm not used to it. I'm not used to anything. New airbrushes, new coffee cups. It's crazy. All right. So, cool little pagoda. I'll have to look up the right word for that, because it's probably not called that in Japan. Editing Steve is doing that right now. But I wanted to get into the soapbox because I'm having a whole lot of fun with the foundation of art type stuff that Brian Moore kind of sparked by his original question. So today, geez, and I'll say it again, I said it last week, each one of these soapboxes could not only be just a video in itself, but an entire course in like a college program. In fact, they are entire courses in college programs. But it's fun to be able to kind of touch on each one and kind of give you the rundown on why I feel like they're important and always relevant in any kind of art or any kind of visual type of thing that you're doing. What I'm doing right now on the palette is I'm getting some green because I'm going to kind of build up this area behind this building just so I don't have to worry about it. This is way too bright, but it'll be fine. Everything's fine. So tonight's soapbox is no different, and I figured I'd kind of get this out of the way earlier than later because it is high on the list of importance. However, it's not something that we'll be able to go over in a half an hour online with no visuals. But that's color and color theory. Again, I talk about like the things to me that are the biggest things, like the things you should start with if you really try to educate yourself in art, or just kind of get your bearings. And this is true even if you're not an artist. If you love art and you don't feel like you're an artist but still appreciate it and really want to get more out of the way you look at art, all these things you can kind of read up on and pick up on. You don't have to be an artist to grasp the concepts. In fact, we've kind of been taught them all along the way in just kind of lesser amounts. But yeah, you see this all the time. So tonight's is color, and it is huge. So before you get into color, there is kind of it's kind of a heavy read in a way. It's sort of technical, but if you can wrap your head around it, the book will kind of set the foundation for everything you're going to learn after this. And that is by the amazing artist Joseph Albers. So he wrote a book called Interaction of Color, and it's an amazing book. It does kind of, it's not a color theory book. Don't think it's like that kind of book. But what he talks a lot about, and I won't spoil it because it's, like I said, it's a great read. It's a great reread 3 or 4 times, because every time you read it, you kind of pick up a little bit more. What he talks about in the book basically is how we perceive color, how individuals and how like, well, there it is, how we perceive color but individually, like no two people see the same color. And that's an important thing to get in your head, I think, from the beginning, because that's just it. You may have what you feel is the number one or most accepted color theory kind of details in your head, and you know it inside and out, but it doesn't mean squat, because everyone sees color differently. Like, you describe a red, for instance, or you look at a red and then you describe it to someone else, and they're even if they see the same red, they're not going to see the same red. You know what I mean? So it's a really, really interesting book and how it breaks all that down. He was just a master. And the examples in the book, and even the softcover book, is great. It's got all the plates in it and everything. But even those ideas like that he has in the book, like I said, even if you're not an artist, you'll be able to pretty much pick up, because they're all like not optical illusions, but some of them are, that kind of thing. He just does such a good job at kind of explaining how we understand color and why we understand color differently, because we are individuals, and it's great. The reason why I say that book is really important to start, again, is because there are so many different color theory methods out there, and they are specific to everything from what you do. For instance, a printer's color theory is going to be different than the color theory for, say, a digital artist, because they're dealing with light. It's more, it's more additive instead of subtractive. So there's that, and also just just the type of paints you use and all of it. It's like the color theories are really specific a lot of times to to that. It isn't just that, you know, red's the primary, you know, red, yellow, and blue are primaries, and then it's the same everywhere else. Even that is arguable. So what's nice about Albert's book is it gives you like kind of an overarching understanding about how we understand color. And then once you have that kind of understanding and that knowledge, it helps you kind of wrap your head around each one of the color theories that you'll kind of run across. It's really, really great. So I would suggest that book first and then kind of branch out from there. And like I said, he is the book itself was written from his notes as a professor. So it is kind of a little disjointed the way it works, but it's not bad. But like I said, it does take a couple reads sometimes to kind of get your head around, you know, what he's talking about and where he's at. But once you do, it's like I said, it's a super, super powerful, great book. So as far as color goes, let's do that. Let's kind of talk about why it's important, I think, rather than get into like a specific color theory or whatever. Obviously, you know, color can do so much, and we talked a little bit about color last week, and as far as you know, with the composition, how you can use it with composition and that repetition and variation. All of it works the same way. You know, if you have an item in your painting that's keeps repeating this red color, and then that red color is similar, but then it varies, there's your repetition and variation with color. You know, it kind of all ties together. And the same thing with composition. You can easily lead your viewer around the canvas by repeating colors in certain areas. You know, for instance, again, red is the one that jumps to my mind, but any of those primary-ish colors, and whatever primary colors you choose or you're employing, those strong, vibrant colors, or even the dark, like strong colors, can be used to lead your viewer around the canvas, and that's really, really important. For realism, it's gigantically important. If you have accurate colors, that sells your painting or your image really, really hard. Having accurate color is huge, and this doesn't only apply, obviously, to realism. I mean, abstract artists use color in those similar ways. You know, they use it to kind of sometimes to lead their viewer around the surface of the painting. It allows them to instill you know, an emotion or you know, change the vibe and the entire vibe of a painting. It's like I said, it's right up there on the list. Let me see what I'm doing here. I want to try to get those buildings in there, but I'm kind of struggling on like what's going on right here. I can kind of see those buildings. I may do a little cutout for this just so I kind of get a better roadmap than what I have here. I don't want to. What I don't want to do is get out a little bit farther and then just say, okay, yeah, these buildings aren't that noticed or defined, so I'll just kind of fluff them in. I don't want to get into that. It's in a painting like that, it's easy. It's easy to do that too. You know, you kind of get paint burnout, and what that leads to is just kind of, for me anyway, it's just kind of it makes me kind of rush on things that I shouldn't be rushing on to kind of get them done. So I'm going to grab another copy here, and I'm going to cut out some stuff. All right, knife. Ooh, I don't know if this knife is going to, I may have to change the blade. So where I'm looking at is right there. Here's my little Japanese building. All right, so what I'm going to do is, it's getting difficult to see what's going on here. So again, what I do is I pick out whatever stands out, I guess. So this dark area is standing out right here. So I'm going to cut that out. Now I may have already cut this out. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. By the time I check, I'll have this cut out. So I'll just cut it out again. There we go. And cut this one out too. Yeah, so where to start on color? Geez. I would suggest starting with a basic color theory. You know, again, the internet is great. And what you want to do if you're using the internet to learn things, pretty much anything, I always look for repetition of facts or things they're talking about. That if I see the same, if I see different people talking kind of about the same thing over and over again, that's a better indication to me that's probably closer to the truth than someone with like an outlying theory on something. But that, again, that's general rules. You can't even rely on that really, especially with the interwebs. But color theory, that's I would kind of handle it the same way. Again, these are all off the cuff. I don't have any favorites that I would suggest looking at, but all you do is just, if you do your normal, just type in, learning color theory. You're gonna get a ton of videos on YouTube, but also just all over the web. Again, keep in mind you want to probably focus on color theory from the aspect that you are going to be using, or if you're painting or drawing, you want, or doing art, you want to kind of get your information from someone who's doing kind of what you're doing. And again, that makes a big difference. Again, if you're an oil painter and you learn color theory from a digital artist, it's not going to work for you. What they're telling you to do and the way that works will have some correlation to what you're doing, but because light blends differently than opaque pigments or even transparent pigments, you're gonna be all over the road. I did cut this out already, so because I just glanced up and saw it. So yeah, so if you're looking for color theory, and you're an oil painter, try to find an oil painter. Because then also you can use what they're using, which is also handy. Like if they say, okay, this is what I use for my primary red, for instance, you can then, go get a tube of that same color. Where if you're learning color theory from a generic source, and they say, okay, this is the red, then you have to find that red, or that yellow or that blue that matches what you're working with. So I would definitely suggest trying to find a person or group that is doing what you're doing as you're learning. So for airbrushing, there is an exceptional color theory method, and it is an entire method, which is really kind of cool. And that is from Drew Blair, and he has founded his color buffer theory, which takes into account just a lot of general color theory, but also color theory in the way that it relates to an airbrush and what an airbrush does and how an airbrush works. So that's something to definitely check out. And what's nice about Drew's program is you can go to his class to learn it firsthand, or he even has a kind of a classroom in a box type of thing, which is great. So again, it's basically just kind of sticking with the style of art that you do. And again, I'll say it again, say you're interested in airbrush, you're not an airbrusher, but you love watching airbrush stuff, and you want to learn more about color theory, I would again suggest looking at an airbrush artist and the way they deal with color a little bit more heavily than just say generic color theory type of thing. All right, I'm just kind of running around this thing and picking out anything that's dark I can find with a little bit more discretion than I did originally. Like when I did this cutout originally, I was just kind of like running around and picking the biggest areas just to kind of give myself, that block in type of thing. But now I'm kind of being a little bit more careful about what I'm cutting out and how I'm cutting it out, and cutting out things that are a little bit smaller that I would have just passed over last time, and just going for it. So yeah, what can I say about color? A couple things I can say about color is if you're an artist and you're getting into it, The first thing I would suggest to you is limit your palette a lot. I mean, write down 2 whatever primaries you choose, and white and black, and stick with that. Learn those colors. Learn what they do. Learn how they work the way you're going to be using them, meaning with the airbrush, or if you do what I do and you use an airbrush and a paintbrush, become really, really familiar with a short palette, not a lot of colors. I'm not saying just keep those colors in your work. In fact, you don't want that at all. You don't want to use anything out of the, for me, when you're learning to mix colors, you don't want to have anything out of the bottle or out of the tube, straight on your canvas. You want to mix everything, and it's gonna help you really understand those colors and how they kind of mix together, and their strengths and their literally meaning their strengths. So different pigments and have a different strength within that color. So some pigments are much stronger. So if you're used to mixing your colors and you have this red that's super strong, and you know that if you mix your red, 1 drop of red to, I don't know, 1 drop of whatever, green, you get this really nice kind of grayish color or whatever. And then okay, let's do the same thing with yellow. I'll use yellow and then I'll add a drop of green, and then all of a sudden the green completely takes over. Well, the yellow is, in this instance, the pigment isn't that strong. So the green is much stronger, so it'll just take over the color. And that's what I'm talking about. The more you use the colors that you have, the more you'll become familiar with them, which is why a short or a small palette is great. It also, it's nice that way, because if you have a short palette, you can mix just about anything once you get used to it. You'll never be in a position where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have this color, what am I going to do? Where if you buy like 25 colors to start, it almost acts like a crutch. It's like, well, I need kind of a greenish blue. Well, I have a greenish blue right here, so this is what I'm going to use. But if you have to mix that color, not only will you eventually get that color and know how to mix it, but you're going to travel through all kinds of different colors before you get to the color you want. And sooner or later down the road, you'll be looking for one of those colors that you mixed up by accident. You'll be like, oh, I know exactly how to make that. So again, I would suggest highly that you keep that palette really, really small to start, as small as you can. And it will definitely benefit you. From a natural type of looking painting point of view, there are very few, like we very rarely see pure pigments in the world. It's like when you notice something like a bluebird, that blue that's on that bird is like crazy vibrant. Or if you're sticking with birds, like the red of a cardinal, that type of shock color doesn't happen very often in the real world. And yet we have all those colors available to us in all these great little tubes and bottles, right? So if you use a lot of those colors straight out of the tube or bottle, you're going to have a painting that looks very cartoonish, very unreal, because those colors don't appear. Where I see this almost all the time is when people who are on the newer side paint grass or trees. We have it in our head that, a tree is green or grass is green, and we grab that bottle of Viridian and we, slap it on there, and it looks like some kind of toxic waste dump. So here we go. That's what I got, a bunch of little things cut out here. It should give me my roadmap. So we mix a lot because colors in real life are not out of the bottle or out of the tube. Again, very rarely, and we know them. I mean, like I said, you think about, especially with like gemstones, because gemstones have that really kind of cute, pure color a lot of times, like a ruby or something like that, like jade, piece of jade, or those are like vibrant colors. But you think about, like, if you saw a piece of jade jewelry, how bright, and like how that would just like lock your vision in, just be like, well, that's amazing, right? Because we don't see those colors a lot. Look around you right now, unless it's man-made, there's a can of Coke on your desk or whatever. Most of the colors that occur naturally are mixed. They're not, crazy. Again, some are crazy. but most have a complexity to them that's pretty cool. All right, so this little guy right there is the one I knew I already cut out, so I can kind of use that as an anchor. And I also used this template before, so these little things right here, I can use those as an anchor as well. And way back, I use this template down here as well. So those are three things that kind of help me triangulate where this goes. So there we go. We'll get that in there, and I'll move you guys back to where you should be, which is here. And I'll get a jumbo magnet to hold this guy in place. And there we go. All right, good. This is dark, so I'm going to just use a black here, a reduced black, just to kind of, again, this is my roadmap. I don't care what colors it's going to be ultimately. This just kind of gives me that idea of where stuff is supposed to be. And all just like that, we're 25 minutes in. See what I mean? Like, we didn't even scratch the surface. Like, I could do a whole episode just on red. You know what I mean? And I also want to stress too, since this is kind of the overview of color, you'll get a grip on it. You'll get a handle on the theory, on whatever theory you choose. You'll modify it as you go, but you will never get there. You will never get there. You will never have this complete mastery of color, because no one has that. That's a good thing to know, because if you get frustrated in your learning of it, just know that it's never ending. So if you feel like you're not getting it fast enough, or there's just too much to learn, know that everyone's on that same path with that. And it's just, well, the way I do it is I pick what I need, and then I apply that little bit. You know, don't try to get the whole thing down and use everything. You know, you can easily get burnt out. And again, just know that path of learning how color works and how it'll benefit you and make your artwork stronger, like I said, it's never ending. You'll always be working on it. And it's wonderful. It's great, because you'll think you have something down, and then something new will pop up, or you'll hear a new way to look at it, or a new theory, and then you'll be like, oh my gosh, I can apply that to what I do, or that's the missing part that I couldn't figure out. So it goes on, and it's wonderful, and just embrace it. Don't get frustrated with it. It can be frustrating for sure, but yeah, its importance will take care of it. Yeah, I love that. That's much better. So what the heck is that? What is between? Oh, that's the building. Ha! See, that's why we do this. That is why we do this. There's that little brickish, whitish building is the one that's above the... Ugh. All right, I'll know the name of that style of building by next week. No, I won't, because I'm recording 3 videos in a row. So next week I will still not know what it is. But that's okay. You guys will know, because Editing Steve would have already put it up. So, or if you're Japanese, you would have already known what it was anyway. So, all right, so there's this, looks like a worn brick building, but it's probably not that. And that comes in over here. So this, again, this painting is a great example of what I was talking about. There's so much color in this, but because it's so mixed and muted, it all kind of blends together until you get into it, which is exactly what we want for this painting. You know, as bright, even though it's sunset or dusk, as orange as the New York painting was, or as brick colored as the Boston painting, or that crazy sunset in Death of a Salesman with the reflections in the water and everything, all that. Those paintings all have this strong sense of whatever color was going on in them, where this one is a totally different animal. I'm super happy Lachlan got this photo and not, I mean, I certainly could have used the bright sunshine photo for this painting. Sorry about that. Here we go. However, I think it definitely would have had a completely different vibe, and I think it would have matched, for instance, Cincinnati painting. The Cincinnati painting was a bright sunny day, partly cloudy day, and you can tell, So if this one was the same type of day, this painting would read a lot like that one, you know, which is fine. But in the end, I love doing this series, but I also don't want, 15 paintings that look exactly the same that are just cities. You know, it's nice that each one is like different. And again, you look for repetition and variation in paintings, but I'm looking for repetition and variation in my series of paintings as well. I like that they have that common thread. They're the same size, framed the same way, roughly, except for the wood and the backgrounds are different, but the theory is the same. But I love that the variation comes in like in the framing, like the wood is different. The wood is always, whatever, domestic wood comes from the area around the painting, which isn't always true, but I try. But the backgrounds too, some are asphalt, some are brick, this one's going to be like this weird tan colored stone. So it's all the same stone idea, but they're all different. And the same thing with the paintings, that they're all, they were taken at different times of day. They were different views as far as, like some are ground-based or building-based, some are aerial. I like that. And when they're viewed together, that repetition and variation will kind of all come together. They may never hang together, like the New York painting is already gone. So, that's a possibility, but that's okay. They should be able to stand on their own. However, if in a retrospective and looking at them, it'll be kind of a cool thing to see the similarity in this series. Cute little guy right here. Nice. Noise. All right, and that building up there is white. Ish. Gray. There's a gray building between, and then there's this little white guy up here. I know Editing Steve is going to be yelling at Painting Steve for doing half this underneath the palette cam, but I'll come up with something. Move the palette cam or whatever. Not palette cam, the reference cam. Good. So those are over here. Good. Yay. All right, so I think that's a good spot. All right, so here is the whole painting. That's how we're coming out. And yeah, again, I keep saying it, I am happy with our progress. There's a lot to do, but we are definitely making time. All right, so if you'd like to help out, which I know you do, please do the right thing. Click that like and subscribe. Leave me a comment. Give me a soapbox topic. Add to what I've talked about. If you have an idea or a take on color, please leave it below. If you'd like to support us in a more financial way, that's amazing. Helps keep the lights on. You can do what these lovely people have done, become channel members and get discounts and early access and all that fun stuff. All right. So for Steve Leahy and Through Lachlan's Eyes, I will catch you guys all next week. Have a great one.